It's one of the greatest mysteries in North American history. In 1587, an entire English colony vanished into thin air. Today, we look back at the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. When Sir Francis Drake landed in North Carolina in 1586, he claimed the territory for England. A year later, the first English colony was established on Roanoke Island, but it would be short-lived. The whole colony just up and left, apparently. And when the relief ship arrived, there were no people and only one structure standing. It would leave those involved with the colony and future colonists scratching their heads in wonder as to what could have happened to the settlers. So here are some possible theories about what may have happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Number 1. They all died of disease. It's been theorized that nearly the entire colony could have succumbed to disease during the time they were on Roanoke. This could explain why there was no evidence of a battle or violence, and it also would explain why there was only one building still standing. If the colony was wiped out by disease, the survivors may have packed up and left. The early colonies were plagued by disease. Most of the settlers never even made it to the New World alive. When they did make it to the shores of North America, they were met with harsh conditions and bugs they'd never seen before. One bug bite could turn into a deadly infection, and colonists were succumbing to malaria, typhoid fever, yellow fever, and smallpox, to name a few. Some of these diseases were brought over from Europe, and some were picked up from Native Americans who had been exposed to diseases from Europeans in the past. Colonists weren't dying in great numbers when they first got to Roanoke, but the colony only lasted from August of 1587 until August of 1590, and it's likely that a disease could have come through and wiped them out. Even though the settlers were under the command of an experienced naval officer, John White, they were low on food and supplies and not in the best health overall when they arrived. White said that the men aboard the ship carrying supplies were ill and couldn't unload the cargo, forcing him to bring in outside help from the local Native Americans. A lot of the colonists were sick during the winter months, and the governor's daughter and granddaughter died. Disease seemed to follow them throughout their time on Roanoke, and even though there wasn't much evidence of this when the relief ship arrived, it is a possibility that the colony simply died off from diseases brought from Europe or acquired from Native Americans. Number 2. The CROATOAN tribe. There is a theory that members of the CROATOAN tribe killed the settlers on Roanoke. The CROATOAN were an Algonquian-speaking tribe living in the region when the English showed up. They were known for being fierce warriors and wouldn't stand for the English encroachment on their land. But there is little evidence that the CROATOANs attacked the English, mostly because the two groups kept to themselves for the most part. There was communication between the two groups, however, and when the relief ship arrived, it was reported that some of the settlers were living with the Native Americans. So it's possible that members of the CROATOAN tribe did attack the English, but it seems unlikely that they would have killed every single person on the island. Also, if the CROATOANs did kill the English, why didn't they claim the land after the settlers were gone? Instead, they let the English ships arrive every so often to see how the colony was doing. When the relief ship came in 1590, they found no sign of the settlers except for one structure. And the CROATOANs didn't seem to claim the land or any of the buildings or supplies. They also found an area where someone had been living in a shallow depression in the ground. The sides of the depression were neatly cut, like with a knife, which didn't resemble anything the Native Americans had done in the past. This led to speculation that the CROATOANs might have held the colonists captive. There's no proof, however, and the theory is highly speculative. Number 3. They moved inland. Another theory is that the colonists didn't die on Roanoke, they simply moved inland. The fort that was built on Roanoke Island was abandoned, but that doesn't mean the settlers were killed or taken captive by the CROATOANs. One theory says that the settlers simply decided to abandon their fort and move to higher ground inland. This could have been because they were tired of being on the coast and having their food supply raided by the Native Americans. Or it could have been because of a natural disaster. When the relief ship arrived, it found the fort abandoned, but it also found signs that a fire had recently swept through the settlement. Perhaps the colonists thought that moving away from the coast would be better for them. It's possible that they were familiar with this area of land since the English had been coming to the area for years before the colony was established. They may have figured that they would have better luck growing crops further inland, or that they could easily fish the rivers and streams. Whatever the reason, the colonists could have decided to abandon the fort and head to higher ground. Number 4, they were captured by another European country. At the same time that England was sending ships to North America, Spain was also sending ships to the New World. Spain was actually the first European country to establish a settlement in North America. Their first settlement was in Florida, and it was established in 1559. Before the English established their colony on Roanoke, the Spanish had established several settlements throughout North America. And even though none of them lasted, the Spanish were trying to claim as much of the New World as they could for Spain. In the 1500s, Spain and England were rivals and at war. So it's possible that the Spanish captured the English settlers and brought them back to Europe. However, there is little evidence to support this theory. The Spanish did capture ships carrying English goods and sometimes held the crew captive, but it's unlikely that they would do the same thing to a whole colony. No. 5. They sailed away. Another theory to what happened to the lost colony is that they simply got on a ship and sailed away. This could have been because they were running out of food and supplies, or it could have been because of pressure from the Native Americans. If the colonists were being attacked by Native Americans and losing people left and right, they may have decided to get on a ship and sail away. Or perhaps they weren't being attacked, but the attacks were getting more and more frequent. They may have decided it was time to go. This theory isn't very popular, however, because the fort was abandoned, but no ship was found. If the colonists did sail away, they would have left behind their supplies and their homes, which would have been valuable to the English. They would have been able to take some of the supplies with them, but leaving everything behind doesn't really seem logical. And number 6, a combination of the above. There's also the theory that a combination of the above could have led to the demise of the lost colony. For example, the settlers could have been running low on food and supplies and were being harassed by the Native Americans. Disease could have come through and killed a large portion of the settlers. Those remaining could have gotten on a ship and sailed away, leaving behind the fort and their belongings. It's also possible that the colonists were driven inland by the Native Americans and disease, or that they were captured by the Native Americans, and some managed to escape and hide out elsewhere on the island. Whatever the case, it seems likely that a combination of factors could have led to the lost colony. In reality, we may never know what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke. There are theories and speculations, but nothing concrete has ever been found. The colony was established in 1587, and when the relief ship arrived 3 years later, the entire colony was gone. All that was left was the fort and one structure. The word CROATOAN was carved into a post, which may have been the last clue as to what happened to the settlers. But since the word could be spelled 2 different ways, the rescuers didn't know if the settlers had joined the Croatan tribe or if they had sailed to the island of CROATOAN. We may never know what happened to the lost colony, but their disappearance will continue to fascinate people for years to come. All right, guys, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.